am your co host, welcoming you to the John Tilford Detroit Show, coming to you live every morning at 10 o'clock on Wjzz Cool Tv. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public Schools superintendent, a former conqueror of Olympic track champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, and author of 8 books available at Amazon.com or by calling 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. A recipient of the Detroit City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award, Dr. Telford was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year, and a Detroit track is named for him. His email address is drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. That's drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. He also has a show, a radio show, that you'll have to call to find out when and where. Now to the Dr. John Telford Show and his wonderful guests.
Thank you, Gloria Cunningham, for that introduction. My name is Detroit. I'm a blue-collar town. Blue salt melts my mid-March snow. Speedy cars and sprinters spring from me. I father fierce fighters and funky music. In a Motown moment, I can spit the blues right back in a bureaucrat's eye. Have you never seen blue salt? No complex chemistry here, only the old color of a new sky. And we've got a new sky dawning on Detroit today because Hiroko Lancour is in the station today, artist Hiroko Lancour. And we are going to be interviewing her very shortly. But first, I want to say a couple of other things. I want to say, for example, that my book, Athletes, Activism, and Appleboughs, Athletes, Activism, and Appleboughs, a Detroit Poetic Epic, is available on Amazon.com. And if you want me to send you a signed copy, all you have to do is call me and give me your address, and I'll sign a copy and mail it to you on the honor system. Athletes, Activism, and Appleboughs, a Detroit Poetic Epic. My phone number is 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. And also I wanted to mention to you that yesterday I did my poetry reading. You know, I'm the poet in residence at the Detroit Public Schools Community District, and I did a poetry reading at Cass Tech, and I had the Detroit Police Commissioner Willie Burton with me, and later I went and stood on the picket line in Detroit because I'm picketing for the UAW. And so I stood on the picket line in Detroit, and you know, I just want to do a poem about Detroit Police Commissioner Willie Burton because he's such a good leader. And the poem that I wrote is, I'm totally certain that Big Willie Burton has the right vision to lead the commission. Told him I was going to read that over the air today. And you know, last week on the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ, Anthony Adams was on the show. It was last week. And he agreed to represent Gloria Cunningham in her lawsuit against the what's the place?
Regency at Shane.
Regency at Shane, because they've been mistreating her father, who was a resident there, got bed sores. So Anthony, congratulations on selecting Gloria for your client, and Gloria, congratulations on having Anthony Adams, the distinguished Anthony Adams, represent you in that lawsuit.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce Hiroko. We are so happy to have Hiroko Lancour on the station today. Hiroko, hold up one of your art pieces.
Okay.
Just hold it up and give me one of them too. Yeah, and hopefully this is registering. Hiroko is a tremendous artist. I'm holding one up on my side, So from one side or the other side, or both sides.
Yeah, the other way.
any way we can see Hiroko's art is being held up. So Gloria, you have a question to ask Hiroko?
Yes, yes. We are eager to find out just who you are. Can you give us a brief summary of your background, or it can be a little longer than brief if you like.
First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Telford and Gloria, for inviting me on your show.
Well, we are honored to have you on.
Happy to be here.
We are so honored to have you on. We have artists on, we have poets on, we have authors on, and also we have some political folks on every now and then. But we are so happy to have you on today, Hiroko.
Okay. My name is, again, Hiroko Lancourt. And the first name, Hiroko, is from Japan. I'm from Japan.
Okay.
And then Lancourt is my American husband, who I met in Tokyo while I was in Japan. But anyway, okay, I am a visual artist. Then I was born and raised in Japan.
Okay.
And then I came to the United States when I was 22. And after graduating from college with English degree, then 1976 was the year I came here. That was a bicentennial year. So in the whole country, United States was in the festivity mood. Then that was that made quite impression. Then, and I went back to Wayne State to get my second bachelor degree to get some kind of technical skill. So I studied computer science, and then after graduation, I was lucky enough to find a full-time job at the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan in downtown headquarters. And then, okay, I'm going to make a long story short. And then somehow I got into art, creating art. And then I again went back to Wayne State to get my graduate degree. And then now I am a full-time artist, and retiring from Blue Cross.
Okay, so you become a visual artist
Yes.
after retiring from your instructional technology career.
Yes.
And how did art making actually come into your life?
Okay.
What led you into that
that was
pursuit?
quite accidental.
Okay.
And when I was in Japan, when I was 20, I came down with detachment of retina.
Oh boy.
And then my vision was severely impaired. And then the bad eye, everything looks wavy. But luckily, the other eye also I had a detachment, but I can still see pretty well. So my brain do the trick, so I can see things straight. But at that time, I realized that because of my visual impairment, I never thought of becoming an artist. Using an eye as
You can never tell by looking at this artwork, I'll tell you that.
Then I was totally involved in my career. Then probably around a midlife kind of crisis mode.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Then it looks like something is missing from my life.
Mm-hmm.
Devoting entire kind of hours, then thinking always about work. Then it wasn't right. Then I'm an animal lover. Then one of my pets passed away.
Oh.
Yeah. Then I was dealing with long grieving process.
Yes.
And then one of the cultural differences is in Japan, euthanasia is not common. But here, when you have ill animals.
Yes.
Yeah. So I decided to, put my dog to sleep. That was a very difficult decision.
I understand.
Then I had the guilt and everything. Then I had this urge to do something good for other people.
Yes.
So I found the organization that is a Carmanos Cancer Institute hospice program.
Oh, Carmonas, right.
Yes. then I became a hospice volunteer. Then, one of the activity in that program was to host a summer camp for the family who lost their loved one.
Yes.
Yeah. Then during that camp program, there was a art therapy sessions.
Art therapy.
Yes, art
Okay.
therapy.
Got it.
Then there was an opening, so I decided to sit in. There was just a piece of paper, then pre-printed like a diagram or geometrical pattern. So all we had to do is get a bunch of colored pencil, and then just coloring.
Right.
Then while I'm doing it, I was able to totally, in the zone. Then I was able to forget about everything. You know, up until then, I tried yoga, meditation, then Tai Chi, and those things, but nothing worked. Always had like a lot of chatters and noise and regret and guilt. But
Yes.
at the moment when I was coloring, I was able to forget about everything.
So it was the art that
Yes.
led you, out
Yes.
of this wilderness,
Right.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And
that
so,
was the beginning.
tell us about your medium, because you have
Yes.
a kind of a unique
Okay.
art medium, and tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about your medium.
Okay, like this, I use a fiber.
Okay.
Okay, maybe I'm gonna just go through the different medium.
Sure.
Then this is a silk organza. Again, it's a fiber. But
Okay.
this one, again, it's a fiber, but it's a blueprint. It's called the cyanotype. Then this is a reed from my backyard.
Oh, that's a reed from your backyard.
Yes.
Wow.
Then this one is a mixed media.
That
I
one's
use
beautiful. Oh, they're all
paper
beautiful, but that
and
one's,
cotton.
Yeah.
Then
look at all the
yeah,
colors.
then
Oh.
acrylic
Yeah, the colors
painting.
really
Yeah.
Yeah.
speak loudly.
Then this one is a paper on paper.
Oh my goodness.
And
Paper on paper.
Yes, thick watercolor paper. Then I use a very thin Japanese calligraphy paper. And then small piece of paper, and I wet the paper. Then I use those two fingers to roll to create a little cord.
Wow.
Then I stitch into that watercolor paper.
Oh, wow.
Then I made it like a kind of a three-dimensional, so it's create a cast shadow. So it look like it's not the flat. It has a little, 3D effect.
Oh, yes. Oh,
And
yes.
this one is also, it's my method. I call it paper sashiko. Sashiko means it's like a traditional sashiko is a fiber on fiber and stitching. But I'm doing this for more than 10, 15 years, this method, and paper on paper.
Paper on paper.
Then this one is, this is traditional in origami paper. Then I made a Western style dress using a Japanese woodcut print image. So it's a mixture of West and East.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this is my really early oil painting.
Oh, it's an oil painting.
Yeah, oil painting.
Okay.
So I tried a different medium.
Now, what inspired you to do that oil painting?
Oil painting. At the time, I was taking an oil painting class at Wayne State,
Okay.
and Professor Peter Williams, and he was a very important professor for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So he suggested I use, like a wax medium. Then yeah.
Let me see that. This is an oil.
Yes.
Wow, this is really beautiful.
Thank you.
You do some really, really beautiful stuff.
Okay,
You know.
Doc.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Few seconds. Station ID. You're watching the Dr. John Telford Show, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
Thank you, Gloria Cunningham, for that station identification. And I want to say that, by the way, I am supporting Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin. I am supporting Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin for the United States Senate. And I want to say that up front right now. We've got to get her on that Senate. Alyssa Slotkin, she's very important for Michigan. And also I want to say that I'm supporting Democrat Tiffany Tilley for Congress. Tiffany Tilley for Congress. Tiffany Tilley is running for Congress in Michigan's 10th district against Republican John James, and he's the incumbent. And we've got to get Tiffany Tilley into that seat. Tiffany Tilley is a state board of education member. She was also on the executive board of the 14th district Democrats when I was on that executive board. You know, that district, we had to give up that district because of enrollment population in the city of Detroit in the state of Michigan. But Tiffany Tilley will be a superb congresswoman. And her email is votetiffanytilley@gmail.com. That's vote Tiffany, TIFFANY TILLEY, vote Tiffany Tilley @gmail.com. And we are interviewing Hiroko Lancour today, who is a magnificent artist. Hiroko, tell us a little bit about what inspired you who inspires you as an artist?
Okay, I like minimalist artists, and especially Eva Hess, and her work is displayed at DIA. And then it was a cube, then inside the cube, then an industrial code, then stick in, then it looks like when you look in, like an internal organ,
Okay.
but outside of everything is neat and placed very neatly. And then something about that work really speaks to me. So I started doing something in a kind of serial, lined up neatly. Then I think that came from my, in a computer experience. I was writing a computer code.
Oh, yes.
Then everything have to be precise.
Right.
And even computer language, and my supervisor, he had the way to do the indentation. It's almost like a musical kind of, it's very minimum, but it did the job.
Well, music is of course mathematical,
Yes.
and your work has a kind of a mathematical perfection to it.
Yes.
I've noted that. Have you had exhibitions, or are you planning any
yes.
exhibitions?
I had one solo show at this particular one is very memorable because of the venue. I had that at the Freer House. Do you know the Charles Lang Freer House? That is 1 block north of the DIA.
The Freer House.
Yeah, Charles Lang Freer was the art collector, and then his museum is at the Washington Mall.
Oh, wow.
Freer Gallery of Art.
So it's 1 block north of the Detroit Institute of Arts
Yes,
on
on the
Woodward
East
Avenue.
Ferry.
East Ferry.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
between Woodward and Jonar.
Hmm.
And then I like Mr. Freer and history of that building than what Mr. Freer did. So I started volunteer there. And Mr. Williams, director of that Freer House, asked me to have a show. So I had like a pop-up show, and using his mansion, then each room has a different theme, that kind of tied to Mr. Freer's legacy. Then also I had shows in the Detroit Artist Market, and
Yeah, I know
then
that.
mostly the group show, then the Scarab Club,
The Scarab Club.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
then Detroit Historical Society,
At the
And-
Detroit Historical Museum?
Yeah, museum.
Yeah,
yes.
okay, right.
And there
Yeah, I've done
yeah.
my books there sometimes.
yeah, I displayed this particular one.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay.
Then also the U of M Hospital. Then in Midland there was a Alden B. Dow Museum.
Okay,
Then Grosse Pointe War Memorial. Yeah, so
okay.
mostly locally I'm active.
Well, you were born and grew up in Japan before moving to Michigan at age 22. How did your Japanese upbringing impact your life here? Can you share some personal stories?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, it's when I came here, I brought a lot of Japanese customs and the Japanese way of thinking, but for example, even simple thing is totally opposite here. Like in Japan, I was taught in metric system,
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
and so I had to learn, to think in inches.
We have the reverse problem, you know.
Oh.
I hold a lot of records that are yards
Oh.
records. I was a sprinter, 440 yards,
Oh.
220 yards,
Yes.
100 yards,
Mhm.
and long jump.
Mhm.
I long jumped
Yeah.
24 feet,
Oh,
but I don't know how far 24 feet is in
Oh.
meters,
Yeah.
but we
So
do
the-
know more in the running events,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the meters are almost
Yeah, meters.
impossible to gauge,
really?
for us.
Yeah. Then in driving, in Japan, it's a left side.
Right. Yeah.
the-
Yeah.
Here is
Like in England.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then so I have to use to those things. Then the scenery too, and here everything is flat. I missed mountains. I missed oceans. So the everyday life I had to adjust. Then I have to have my own yardstick to live here. Then also the language. Even though I, study English, but I have an accent. And then sometimes, when I first came, people didn't understand me. So first I had to adjust to, American life. Then one of the hardest thing is in Japan, and modesty is a virtue. But here, I
Americans
I will be
are big braggers.
like
Let's face it.
if I'm too modest, I will
Yeah.
be a doormat, right? People walk over.
Yeah. You have
So-
to learn to assert yourself in
so-
this
yeah.
country, no question
Mhm.
about it. And
Yeah.
I want to. You've shared with us some of your wonderful art. I'm gonna move to a more spiritual dimension
spiritual.
now, and
Yeah.
and I'm gonna ask you some questions in that sphere. Looking at your work, which I have looked at all of it and studied it, I sense spirituality is important to you. So, can you tell us about your spirituality and how it impacts on your creating your art?
Yeah. Then, okay, for me, the spirituality, it comes from different sources. And then I was brought up in a Buddhist household,
Okay.
so I carried that, value. And recently I got really interested in learning Bible and Christianity. Then I had a little encounter with Christianity when I was still in Japan, because I went to a university called International Christian University,
Oh, okay.
that created by the missionary people from
Yeah.
the United States.
Yeah.
But in along the way, my life, certain things happen. But when I look back, it's almost like these points. Now I see the connection. Then that connection is not made by myself. And along the way, so many people helped me. Then, for example, when I came, the affirmative action was
Yes.
very strong.
Ye-
Then, and
Yes, it's
So-
under attack now by
Yeah.
the
But,
Retrumplicans, and I talk about that a
I
lot.
was a beneficiary, of the affirmative action. Back then, people sometimes joke, yeah, I'm a double dipper. I'm a Asian, non-white, right? Then I'm a female.
Yes.
But I had to work really hard to prove that I can work. I can do the job. But
Yes. Affirmative action
Mm.
is under attack, and we've got to defend it. It's still very badly needed in this country. There's Jim Crow. There are other forms of discrimination
Mm-hmm.
against non-white people,
Yeah.
against non-Christian people.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that we fight that tooth and nail, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I talk about constantly
Right.
on all of my
Right.
shows. But tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about.
Yeah.
Uh,
Then
well, go ahead. Go.
the
You were saying.
subject matter, when I pick what kind of piece I want to make, I want to use this as an example. This is in a cyanotype. Then this weed, we call it weed, but I was doing the weeding in my backyard. Then at that moment when it came that the root formation was very visible, then I look at this and I felt it's like who are to say this is a weed we have to get rid of. It's so beautiful. So I decided to pay more attention to something around me. I don't have to go someplace special, beautiful place to paint. And material is right there if we look. So this gave me the idea, what we discard without thinking can be a art object, if you put something to it. Then also, the reading is the person reading is terminating that life. So again, I go back and forth. Am I killing something? And so I have a guilt, and that always dealing with guilt.
I can hear your Buddhism coming
Mm.
out in
Um,
that statement.
Yeah. Then
It's
also,
very profound. It's very
I-
profound.
thank you. I see the dualism. Sometimes we look at only the surface, front, people's face. Everybody has a personal life backside, and then public life in face. So, and I go back and forth, American way, then Japanese way. Then that the kind of a visual example is this one. I created this jacket in the front side here in the American side,
Yes,
and I
yes.
use a cotton.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then here this is a Homeland Security logo.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when I come back from Japan, I have to go through the
Customs, right?
Then this logo is everywhere at the airport. And then I felt really kind of uneasy, uncomfortable. I'm showing Japanese passport. Then they ask me a lot of questions. you
Yeah.
know. But it's a cotton, so I don't have to worry about, it's like a carefree attitude. When I wear the American side, my behavior is not more American. But this inside is a Japanese flag, then I use silk.
Yeah, and it's got
Then
the sun there.
Yeah, so when I wear it, I'm representing Japan. So my mannerism changed. I walk more kind of a short stride. Then, and when I see somebody, I always bow. So my Japaneseness comes back.
That is fascinating.
So
That
I
really
think-
is fascinating.
But we wear, outer side really affect how we behave and think.
Yes, you're describing some of the motivation for your art and explaining your art.
Yeah.
When I do my poetry, I do the same thing. Many of my poems, I explicate. I describe, how I wrote them, why I wrote them, and some of the inner thinking that I had when I did that. And you do the same thing with your art. Do you have a
Yeah.
question?
Just to do the ID once
Oh,
again.
time again. Okay.
Okay. You're watching the Dr. John Telford Show live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
Thank you, Gloria Cunningham, for that station identification. Miss Virginia Starkey, Miss V, fondly known simply as Miss V, the proprietress of Wjzz Boutique, offers a wide range of fine clothing and accessories for ladies. You can find all sizes of women's fine apparel in V's one-stop excellent shop over at 16423 East Warren Avenue, where you can't find anything of that high quality anywhere else in Detroit anymore. So patronize V's Boutique. It's over at the corner of East Warren and East Outer Drive, right around the corner from the Alger Theater, the old Alger Theater, and right around the corner from one of the few libraries that is still open in the city of Detroit. And we are interviewing Hiroko Mancour. Hiroko Mancour. And did I say, is it Mancour or Mancour, right?
Lancourt?
Lancour. I
Yes,
always
Lancourt.
get the wrong consonant from the beginning of her name. Hiroko Lancour, who is a fine artist. She's been sharing some of her art with us today, and she's been sharing some of the reasons for her having been inspired to become an artist. And she's been talking specifically, as she's responded to some of these recent questions, about the spirituality within her work. But I want to ask you this, Hiroko.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the phone? Yeah, I can hear.
Oh, it looks like we got a question.
Okay, start talking.
Do we have a question?
I'll call him.
Caller, you're on the air, caller.
Hello?
Yes, caller,
Hi.
you're on the air. What is your question or comment?
Hi, yes. Oh, hi, Dr. Telford. I listen to your show often. This is really wonderful.
Okay, well, we've got Hiroko Lancour on the station today. Do you have a question for her or a comment about her art?
Yes, and I'd like to ask, in what way will you continue to use your spiritual muse in your creativity?
Oh, that's a good question. And my immediate answer is, I don't know yet.
Her spiritual muse.
Yeah,
We
muse.
didn't quite pick those
Okay,
words up.
spiritual.
In what way do you use your spiritual muse in your artwork?
You know, right now I'm going through some kind of spiritual transformation. You know, like a Buddhist background. Then I'm kind of learning Christianity. Then I get some kind of a gut feeling, something new will come out. And then it will, you know, it's almost like a fermentation. When you create a good wine or a good sake, it takes a while, right? So
You're making me thirsty.
so I think I have a lot of raw material ingredients inside me. And then I'm waiting for some kind of process to happen. And then kind of a fermentation will end. And then I will start producing again. I haven't produced new work for 2 years because I moved from Royal Oak to Clinton Township. Then I'm still my studio. I used to rent studio in Ferndale,
Oh, okay.
but I had to pack everything and move to Clinton Township. Then I'm lucky enough to have a space for my own studio at home.
At home, okay.
Yeah, so I'm preparing kind of an environment. Then I'm looking forward to something new will, you know, something will happen inside me, spiritually. Then when I do my work, I like the feelings of total concentration. You're in the zone. And also, I like the feeling when work is done, then look at that, then I cannot believe it was created by me. It's almost like a feeling like some kind of a spiritual being bigger than I am and using my hands as an instrument. Then I'm just doing, I like doing repetitive thing, like these paper stitching. It requires, I think, probably several thousand holes.
Oh, yeah.
Then I have to do the stitching, so it takes like a 3 month, 4 month to complete. Then, and so it's almost like I'm just an instrument, and something else is telling me, just do it, do it, do it. Then it's almost like walking in like a pilgrim, they're just walking, walking each step.
I understand that, and I'll tell you why. I'm a poet, but I've also written a lot of prose. And the prose I've written, some of it has been factual and some of it has been fiction. And when I write fiction, sometimes I'll want a character to do a certain thing. And I find almost that as I'm writing, that character doesn't want to do it. And that character does something else. And I say, okay, I just got to go along with what he wants to do, and I write it in that sense. So that kind of a phenomenon can occur in writing as well as in art. But that's a fascinating concept when you stop and think about it. How it almost paints itself sometimes.
Right.
As the character writes himself and writes how he wants to do. What are some of the pros and cons of becoming an artist?
Okay, I'm going to do the cons first. Okay, being artist, okay, you have to go through the financial hardship probably. Not everybody
Tell
becomes
me
a
about it.
superstar,
Oh, yeah.
making lots of money.
Oh, yeah.
So there will be no financial stability, and if you don't have a good day job, then you struggle. Then that struggle may kind of negatively impact what you produce. You may produce something that you can sell, And then
Amen.
also in being artist is a kind of a solitary, work.
Yes,
You
it
do
is.
Yeah, so it's lonely. And then if you go to school, you may get a lot of like a student loan. So again, it's a financial issue. But the pros, that the good thing is, you get to meet so many different people that you would never meet otherwise. And then also when you sell something, it's like you're happy, but your baby is you're kind of giving, adoption, somebody, adopting your work. And that created between the collector and artist, there is some kind of appreciative bond. Then that new relationship then open up another relationship. So it seems like a point of contact is really expanding. Compared to when I was just a worker, I commute from home to work every day. Then I mingle with my coworkers, but my world is quite small. But becoming an artist, for example, I took a class that was, then I had to volunteer for the Heidelberg project.
Oh,
Then
yes.
I get to meet Tyree Guyton.
Right.
Yeah, then
Tyree,
Janine Whitfield. Then so I get to learn how why he created that Heidelberg project outdoor
Yeah,
site.
it's an actual
Mhm.
little village over
Yes,
there,
it is.
practically that he's made
So
artistically.
then I get to some place
Detroit.
to go to.
Yeah.
Detroit as like a place to go. sort of
Yes.
my world expanded.
And one of the things that strikes me about you're saying sometimes it's hard to let go of the art when you're selling it. You know, I was a graphic artist when I was a younger man. I was never trained in art, but I used to sell my paintings at a place called the Generous Critic in Grosse Pointe. I don't know if it's there anymore, but sometimes I would bring things there and they would sell, and I would feel a sense of loss.
Yeah.
You know, I lost what I painted. I you know, some of the better pieces in particular. In fact, there were a couple that I liked so much I wouldn't sell. I kept them.
Yeah.
I did a painting of 3 runners that I called a trio of trackmen, and that's hanging on the wall in my place at the River House right now because I couldn't part with it. I never sold it. My second wife did make copies of it and sell them numbered, I think, one time. But I've got the original, and I'm not letting go of it.
Right.
But go ahead.
Do you have, you've sold, I'm sure, at outdoor events?
You know,
Any artistic programs? Have you sold any artwork in those kinds of
outdoor
places?
event like art fair.
Yeah.
You
Something
know,
the DIA might.
yeah, last March there was a one-day event at the DIA. It's the Japanese Children's Festival.
Oh.
Then that was like a demonstration event. We had the total 4 artists at their own booth. And then we saw the prints or greeting card. Yeah, that was my first like art fair type of experience for me. But
Okay.
but I usually sell at the gallery or privately. That's my main
Okay.
method.
All right.
Yes.
If you had to describe in a paragraph how art has enriched and is enriching your life, how would you describe it?
That is gives me a way to express what I have inside, and without using language, not like a
Yes, yes,
poet using a language.
yes.
And I do that without letters. That is
yes.
kind of a freedom because I'm speaking in my second language.
Yes.
So even though, I can speak better than when I came, 40 some years ago.
Yes,
But
it's not
still,
English isn't your native
yeah.
language, but art is everyone's native
yeah.
language.
Right.
Just as music
yes.
is everyone's
Yeah.
native language.
Then abstract concept, idea, you can describe or express differently. Then it's like I can use math in a visual way.
And mathematics is
Yeah.
everyone's
Right. Yeah. it's
universal
universal.
language. Yes.
So I think this gave me the sense of freedom, but inside somehow outwardly expressed. Yeah. Then also the meeting different people, that's important, connection with different human beings. Then that human being introduced me to another human beings from different culture or different background. So my view kind of getting wider and a little wider, Then I'm fascinated in my collector somehow, Jewish people, get interested in my work. But then I think there may be something culturally, the Japanese culture and the Jewish culture. I think there may be some connection.
Oh, I'm sure there is. All cultures have some kind of interconnection. There's no question about that. And that's why it's so important that we retain and enhance art and music and literature in the public schools. And it upsets me as an educator because I've been an educator, for 6-7 decades. When I see art and music and literature being reduced or eliminated, because Music, no question. Mathematics, no question.
Yeah.
Art, no question. They are a universal
Yeah,
language
universal.
that everyone has to learn. And when I see this guy in Florida who wants to eliminate black literature,
Oh,
or
Unbelievable.
put his own racist slant on it, it fills me very frankly with rage, and that's one of the reasons why I'm fighting these fights, on AM 1340, I said it again. I wasn't supposed to say it, but on AM 1340 and on WJZZ Cool TV.
Okay, we're coming down near the end, so we want to make sure you tell us a little bit about your future goals and what you'd like to say to some young aspiring artists. But first, I want to do the station ID.
Okay.
You're watching Dr. John Telford and his guests live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
And Hiroko, before you do that recap, I just want to say that Doyle Johnson, one of my former students in trackman at Southeastern High School, has been self-employed for 52 years, and he just suffered a devastating fire at his office on Van Dyke in Detroit that destroyed most of his inventory and 90% of his equipment. His building insurance had lapsed because in Detroit, insurers want you to carry a $10,000 deductible, which is prohibitive for a small business. So Doyle has given back to the community as the president of the Southeastern High School Alumni Association, and he's got a GoFundMe account. His daughter set up a GoFundMe account, and you can find the site at Doyle Johnson, DoyleJohnson. That's DoyleJohnson, and any amount will be greatly appreciated. So please, everyone who is watching this show, contribute to that GoFundMe account for Doyle Johnson. And go ahead, Hiroko. You can answer her question now.
My future plan.
Yes.
That is, I'm still kind of a hazy. I used to be a control freak. I have to plan everything. Then I have to solve problem. That's
Everything in its mathematical order, right?
Yeah. Then I reached a point that is not a good way living. Then next year I will be 70 years old. Then I don't know how
You're
many.
just a kid. I'm going on 88 in January.
Yeah, so I don't want to do another 5-year plan or 10-year plan because I may not be there. It's a possibility. So my plan is very simple. I want to stay healthy as long as I can, and then I'm going to let, again, like a inspirational moment to take over me. And then I want to be as wide open. I feel that like my senses are my tool, like a radar. Then I want to have my radar shape so that I can catch the moment of inspiration. Then I want to use that as my food. Then I can digest. Then I can create something. But I am not going to control what I'm going to create. I'm going to let something, I don't know what.
The great eternal presence.
Yeah, right. And then use that. Then I feel it. It's there. I cannot express that well, but
You're doing just fine.
Yes, absolutely.
Then somehow I'm getting connected closer to that God or Lord or whatever, But
We all call him or it or she something different.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tell us how you can be contacted. How can you be
Okay,
contacted?
I have a website that is hirokolancore.com. www.hirokolancore.com.
That's
Then-
HIROKOLANCOUR.com.
.com. Then when you go to my website, there is a contact kind of a page, so you can and send an email through my website. Yeah.
Okay, and what would you like to say to a young person?
Young
Quickly,
person.
because
Advice
we're
for
running
young
out
artists.
of
Okay,
time.
quickly. Okay, young person. Okay, take a risk. Then get out of United States at least once while you're young to see another world.
Right.
Then
Yeah, because my daughter
you-
just moved to California, and she's an artist, and
good.
so far so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, out of state or out of country, and then you have to kind of it's a culture shock. Then that shock is the fuel. And then you will start seeing from a different angle. And then multiple, like a perspective is very important when you're kind of going through the youth. Then get a good paying day job so that you can pursue your dream. Then find mentors. I was lucky enough to have the OCC. When I was starting out learning in art, I got a Mr. Mendelsohn. He was a really good teacher. Then he encouraged me to pursue. Then at the Wayne State Grad School. Then
Okay, well, that's about it, Doc. You have any last words?
No, just buy my book, $20.95. You can get it on Amazon.com. Keeps me on the air. That's how I stay on the air, folks. So buy my book.
Okay, well, thank you, and our wonderful guests. Everyone, you've been watching the John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford and co-host me, Gloria Cunningham, coming to you on Wjzz Cool TV every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Also streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Contact Dr. Telford at 313-460-8272 to get a hold of all or some of his 8 books. Thank you for watching.
thank you very much, Dr. Telford and Gloria.
It was a beautiful show, Hiroko. Now we're going to take a picture out there.
Okay.
You know, can we take a picture with your camera?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
we're gonna have him.
Purse is over there.
Okay,
Yeah.
go get your purse. He'll use your camera to take a picture of the three of us, and then you can email it to me.